We're back in action here on the White Star Podcast, episode 11. A couple of weeks off, or 1 week off. We had 1 week without Will because Will got sick at a bar. You can use your imagination. But he was down for the count a couple weeks ago, and then last week we were off. I forget. Oh, I was out of town. That's why we were off last week. But we were back to talk some Padres baseball. First third of the season is already over. Can you believe a third of the season's already done in Major League Baseball?
Flew by, but this is when it starts, right? The season starts after Memorial Day.
That's right.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. That's what I'm told most of the time. But yes, we are a third of the season done. I'm Brayton Soprunit. That's Matt Perez. That is Will Galvez joining you today, talking some Padres baseball. We'll dive into some other things as well. Padres get started today at 6:40, trying to win a night game at home against the left-hander. That is something that they've never done, I think, at all this year.
It's also a giveaway day. I don't know if they won a giveaway day either.
They won one giveaway day, and that was the the night they came back against the Cubs. I know they won that one for sure. But aside from that, I don't know how many of the giveaway days that they have won. Add that to the list. What's the giveaway tonight? The bag?
The little fanny pack, City Connect.
Yeah, I snagged one of those for my mom today. She had one. I got her one of them last year, the brown one with the gold SD logo on it. It's pretty nice. Those are great because you can like bring those into the park.
Yeah. The bag policy is a very stingy deal they got going on. So
yeah,
solid giveaway, very useful.
Great giveaway. I also snagged today. Padres did. They dropped off a bunch of gifts of the promos. They had the Xander Bogaerts bobblehead. Nobody really wanted that, so I might snag it tomorrow. They gave away the. I got one in my car right now. The Joe Musgrove basketball.
That's a good one.
Jersey. I got two of those. I might put one of those in the Don's alumni auction for the golf tournament. So you might have to jump in on that on Monday. And then they dropped off like 1,000 rally towels, like Padres towels. And I got a bunch of those. I think you guys are all going to get one in your golf package at the.
Do they say anything good or is it
just like Padres or something on there? I don't know. 2024. I didn't look at it. I'll show you when we get out. I have them in my car. And the other thing that's like we are getting rid of is we have some signed baseballs from like former Padres. And this is a hodgepodge group of Padres. Like Ian Kinsler's on there. I got Matt Carpenter, Matt Strom. I think there's a Franchi Cordero in there. There might be an Eric Lauer. I mean, I don't know. There's like 6 of them. 3 of them you can identify. The other 3, you're going to have to scan the little code that tells you what it is on the authenticator. But yeah, it'll be fun for the golf tournament coming up that all 3 of us are going to participate in. Don't know if we're going to live broadcast on the golf course or not, but we can get into that a little bit. Padres overall end May a game above, or they end the first 2 months relatively to the Memorial Day mark. They got to Memorial Day at 500. They're now 1 game above 500. I talked about it on my other show on Andy and Elston on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97th Fan, that if you make it through the first 2 months at around 500, you're going to be in good shape. Padres finished exactly 500 after the first 2 months, right before Memorial Day. And the schedule's supposed to get a little bit easier. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. We even discussed this today on the show. But for you, what has been the brightest spot on this Padres team? What has been the brightest moment, event, whatever it is? What are you the most encouraged for after the first 2 months of Padres baseball? We'll start with Matt.
Freaking Bob Suarez. I mean, the fact that you got a guy that's willing to go 3+ outs and is basically nails, and you got full confidence in, it's kind of like having like an automatic kicker, right? Like you just trot a guy out there and like, all right, like you're going to get 3, and you feel very confident. I mean,
yeah, Brett Maher out there,
the Maharati. No, it's just something that's too. I see it as pretty sustainable too. I mean, is he going to have an ERA below 1 the whole year? Probably not, but I think the other answer might be like Jerkson Profar, but I don't think that his batting average and everything is super sustainable. But I think Suarez, just given his track record and how he's kind of been groomed into this closer role the last couple of years, is totally the biggest bright spot. I mean, that guy's an all-star if the voting was right now.
We're gonna call it best development of the first 57 games, 55 games, whatever
Yeah,
it
I
is.
mean, I'll take Suarez, but close second's probably Jake Cronenworth. I mean, you talked about it more than anybody how important it is for him to have a big time year, right? Just given his position, his
His
salary,
contracts, all that.
where he hits in the order. He's the left-handed bat now since Juan Soto's no longer on the team, and he has shown up basically since opening day. Um, outside of when the ball went through his glove, but I mean, that's been the only blemish on his entire year, basically.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. The Cronenworth thing, but I'll save mine for after Will. But Will, what has been to you for the Padres the best development of the first 55 games? You got an answer for me, Will? Or
Well, other than when I go to that golf tournament and get my Trey Wingender and Joey Lucchese autograph merch, that's going to be awesome. No, I mean, I feel like Matt, you nailed those two of the biggest ones full season. I mean, can I mention the trade acquisitions? I think Arise kind of goes without saying. I think I can't pour any more money into his stock of potentially winning another batting title and just the impact that he's had on the team. Not only, from the batting, lineup, but just the leadership as well. And he's kind of kept us in it too. You can give some love to Jeremiah Estrada. So I guess maybe is Preller, is he back to being cool again? Are we friends with him again after we kind of, I wouldn't say slandered, but we were a little upset with him, what he's did in the offseason and leading up to, spring training and everything. But, outside of those, I think it's been solid. I hate to be negative though. Like I guess I'm happy with what they do on the road, but what they do at home, specifically on Friday nights, is so piss poor at Petco Park. Like I don't know what it is. So, but I'll stay positive. I would say with the Arise acquisition as well as Estrada, it's been solid.
yeah, for me, I mean the best development I think of the first 55 games. I'm gonna go with a guy like the way Jackson Merrill's been able to play in his rookie year, because at the beginning of the season, and I still hold true to this, I think you got to give this guy an opportunity to fail and see what he can do after the fact, because the Padres notoriously have brought guys up so fast. And it's wrecked a lot of guys' careers of just not being pulled up a little bit too soon. You're seeing that right now with, kind of like guys like Ryan Weathers, who is not having an atrocious year for the Miami Marlins. I mean, he's a guy that got brought into a playoff game because you ran out of arms in the COVID season at like age 20, and he's now only 24 years old, and he's doing pretty well. I mean, he's 3-4 the 3.16 ERA in 11 games started. We're not going to see him this week, but 53 strikeouts, 62 and 2/3 innings pitch. He's still learning how to pitch at a major league level. And he's a guy that everybody wanted to run out of town because he came up too soon, did really well in that Dodgers playoff series. Everybody thought he was just going to be lights out for the remainder of time. So I had to warn everybody that Jackson Merrill at some point in time was going to fail. And he hasn't really failed yet. But when you came into the season with this roster, and we talked about, with AJ Preller, didn't really have that great of a roster, right? Going into the season. I don't think it really was complete yet. We talked about, Dud Gottlieb's kind of conversation if you can't judge the project until it's complete, and it's getting closer to being complete now, and it looks a lot better than it was at the beginning of the season. But I thought the Padres they were putting way too many eggs in baskets of these guys need to be really, really good for us to be successful. One of them being Jackson Merrill. They're like, well, Jackson Merrill's going to have to be the starting everyday center fielder for this Padres team, and he's going to have to play well. Otherwise, they're not going to be good. And he's played really well, I think. And you're starting to see some of those guys regress back to the mean a little bit. You'd like to see some of the starters and superstars that are on the big contracts contribute a little bit more. But to me, I agree with Jake Cronenworth being a guy. I think Jerkson Profar is a great development for this team, and I'm going to go with Jackson Merrill as well. I mean, you mentioned Bob Suarez, but I think Estrada kind of developing into a setup guy has been a great sign for the Padres. And some of these uncharacteristic or unexpected results for San Diego going into the season. Anything else that has stuck out to you has been a surprising major development in the first 55 games that you're encouraged about?
Surprising in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. We'll get to the bad stuff in a second.
I mean, they're playing really well against good teams. I mean, Atlanta, the Dodgers. I mean, it kind of seems like it's gone that way the last couple of years, but that's always encouraging when you can kind of show up to your
They
competition.
play like scrappier baseball against
right,
those guys.
right. But I mean, the inverse is one of the biggest negatives, right? I mean, kind of how they're doing against the lower level teams and teams that you should beat. But you can't complain when you're taking the season series against the Dodgers to start, right?
No, you can't. I would agree with that though. They're kind of they've had a lot of times this year where they've already looked like the way that they play way better than last year's team.
Yeah.
Like last year's team, even though they're more talented than this year's team, you're watching them play through the first 2 months and like everybody just assumed they were going to turn it on, but you're watching them play going like, they're not very good. They're not playing really well. Like
Very,
they're not
anemic.
Yeah,
It's just like,
it's just such a struggle to watch them play. Where this year, are there times that they're like that? Yeah, but they've shown a lot of bright spots where you're like, they could, if they play like this, they could hang with anybody. Last year
Right.
you didn't really see too much of that. You saw, I would say more selfish at bats. This year I think you're seeing more selfless at bats. And there's a couple of times where some of the stars still have at bats where you're scratching your head. Machado swinging 3-0 on that pitch nowhere near the zone. He shatters his bat late in the game on Saturday where, you got our buddy Mike going like, that's our 3-0 hack right there. Like, so there are some question marks with that, but overall, I mean, I think there are a lot of bright spots to this team so far. Anything else for you, Will?
No, I feel like you basically nailed it. I just hate being always the negative guy, but yeah, I love the scrappiness. I love it. Just seems like there's more heart. I don't know if it's the Mike Schilt effect of him, getting on his players and the clubhouse kind of respecting him more as a whole, and not what we felt last year was if there was any sort of like deficit, whether that was 1 run or 4, it just seemed like they rolled over. And I like what night in and night out. Yes, they still piss us off quite a bit amount. But there's more fight. And I think you made a good point, Braden, that there's a lot more selfless aspects of the team, not only at the plate, in the field, in the dugout as well, in the clubhouse, when they go on the road, especially because they're just better on the road for whatever reason. I still don't know why. I think that's huge. And that's going to carry over, into the season as we get into the dog days of the summer and it's hot and it just seems like it's very monotonous and dragging on. You got to be able to fall back on your guys, and seeing this early on, it's encouraging. So I don't know what it's going to be like in August and September, but it seems like we're on the right track.
So we're talking about what has been the best development for the first 55 games. Let's talk about what the most concerning development is of the first, kind of 50 something games throughout. We kind of mentioned it already before, but it kind of teasing where it is. And you know what? We might all have the same answer on this one, but we'll start with you, Will. What has been the most concerning part of this Padres ball club that obviously needs to be addressed before the end of the season through the first 50 something games, as we're at, really the first third of the season already done?
I've said it 3 times already. Their performance at home. I don't understand in front of sellout crowds, whether it's the Yankees or if it's the Marlins or whoever it is, the Blue Jays earlier this year, what it is. I don't know if they're pressing too hard. I don't know if there's too much pressure because of the sold out stands, and we haven't seen this in quite a long time. I want to see better baseball played at home. And I love they can go on the road. It doesn't matter if it's the East Coast, the Central Time Zone, the South, no matter where it is, they get it done. That's awesome. It's encouraging. I want wins at home. I want them because, in the playoffs, especially, what's going to happen if we host a game and now we're pressing against, like what we saw during the COVID season, even though it was different because there wasn't fans in it, but, falling behind, it's like, yeah, what are we going to do? I want better performance at home.
That's definitely, obviously an area of concern. I don't know how you fix that problem though. So, that's why I'm not going to go with that, but I agree with you. I mean, Matt put his Petco, he's running with the bit here. He put his Petco Park record this season on his. He's 2-10. But the reality is he's been to a lot of the night games, and they don't win at night at home. I mean, he's only been to 2 day games. They won one of them, and they win day games. I mean, so like yesterday was a day game that counts as a win. They won on Sunday. That's a day game. And tonight, it's a night game for the Padres, and they're going against Luzardo, who is coming off a really good outing against the Diamondbacks, who's also a left-handed starter. I mean, these are factors that have not helped the Padres. the last couple of weeks, at least to start the season. I don't know how you fix the home problem. I will say this, there's something about being on the road where you can get away from family and friends and you don't have to worry about stuff and you're not doing the honeydew list and, you don't have to pick up the kids from school and all that other stuff for some of the guys that have families. You could just focus on baseball on the road where when you're home, you got, a bunch of life stuff that you have to handle, but there really shouldn't be any reason why they struggle at home compared to on the road. I mean, they have, if you look at their numbers, their road record is up there with the best teams in baseball, with the Phillies, with the Yankees, with the Dodgers, with the Braves, and their home record is up there with the Marlins and the Rockies and the teams that are at the bottom of the standings. It's really quite phenomenal, but to look at, but it's a big reason why they are a mediocre team because they're around 500. Let's get to you, Perez, about who or what I should say is the most concerning development of the first 50 something games.
The regression of your shortstop, Ha-Seong Kim. It's a guy, I mean, last year he was one of the better players on the team. Behind Juan Soto, he outproduced what his underlying metrics are, and he's kind of fallen back down to what he should be, right? Based off
Right.
of, I mean, if you go on Baseball Savant, not much has changed from year to year. It's just that the results were much better than expected last year. And it's Padres might have put too much stock in just repeating that. I mean, he doesn't hit the ball hard. He doesn't slug. I mean, he's a phenomenal fielder, and he's walking a lot this year, right? I mean, the fielding has been great this year, but the guy historically over time has a great glove out there. But just from like a hitting perspective, like you were counting on that position to provide some spark for you, which is why you moved Fernando to right field and you moved Bogarts to second, and I mean, Cronenworth was never a shortstop for him, but you get the point, right? It's like kind of things were moved around for him to have a spot in the lineup every day instead of being a role player like he was in 2021.
Right.
But it's just the strikeouts, the just whiffing at pitches that are out of the zone, not hitting for extra base hits like he was last year. I mean, I feel like it's definitely kind of hurt them a little bit more when you don't have the immediate production from the guys like Will mentioned, right? Like your stud players. I mean, that's a guy that you were kind of banking on with, Juan leaving. Hey, if he does what he did last year, like it could kind of, help us going into this season. That's probably the biggest one that isn't, one that's talked about the most when it comes to your guys that are making nine figures.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most glaring one obviously is the Stars and the fact that the Stars have regressed and haven't really played very well. But I said it today on the show. I'm not really concerned about the Stars because you got guys like Manny saying he's Manny Bleeping Machado. That's what he is. And you know what? I agree with that. I mean, it's only a matter of time before he turns it around. And if you look at his baseball, I look at what he's been doing the last couple of weeks. He's been hitting the ball a lot harder. He's been hitting the ball a lot better. I'm not really worried about him. Fernando, for the majority of the season, has hit the ball really hard. And he's put the ball in play and he's done a lot of good things. Obviously, he's going through it right now. And he's even said it. I don't feel swaggy right now. And he hasn't looked like that in a while. That's why it was great with Luis Ariz being kind of the spark plug. He looks like what Fernando used to look like when he first came up, and he was playing with that energy and that drive and that swag and getting all excited and all that. So we haven't seen that out of Fernando in a while. And I think a little bit had to do with, his last couple of years, obviously. And I think it was a humbling experience for him, but he's not in a right spot, but I still, there's a reason why you gave that guy $300 million something dollars, whatever it was. I'm not worried about him being a young guy turning it around. I mean, some people in our YouTube chat today thought he was going to turn into Javi Baez really quick. And it's just like, come on, dude, that's kind of ridiculous of a comparison and a joke at that age. But I'm not worried about the Stars. To me, the biggest concern I thought, and I know the back end's starting to solidify itself, but going into the season, I thought the bullpen was going to be the best asset for the Padres. And it just has not been. It has not been the biggest asset. So in terms of like how concerned I am, I think I go with the bullpen just because I thought that was going to be the best thing for the Padres. And there's no bridge from the starter to the back end. I mean, De Los Santos has been terrible. He's a home run machine right now. He hasn't been able to hold on to any lead. You don't know what you're going to get out of Adrian Morejon. And to be honest with you, what's disappointing about Adrian Morejon is when you bought this kid and you paid him and signed him as a 16, 17-year-old out of Cuba, he was supposed to be a left-handed starter, gas thrower for the future in the starting rotation. And now he's in the bullpen. And you gave that kid $5 million out of, as a 16-year-old, and now he's already a bullpen piece. I think that's a little concerning, but he's also Jekyll and Hyde back there. You don't know which one you're going to get. That's the same thing with a lot of those guys in the bullpen. You have a Rule 5 draft pick back there. I like Kolek. I think he's got some good stuff for the future, but you're not going to see him this year being a dominant reliever. He's a Rule 5 guy. It's his first time in the pros. You have to keep him on the roster. I like the fact that they picked up Kolek, but if you're a Padres team that's trying to compete for a playoff spot, I don't know why you're picking up a Rule 5 guy. That seems like something that would have been necessary in the 2015, 16, 17, 18 Padres, more so than the 2024 Padres. Start going through the list of bullpen guys. I mean, Wandy Peralta is most of the time he's a circus up there. Seriously. I mean, he gives you Luis Garcia vibes from from last year and before. He's not to be trusted. Yuki Matsui, same type of thing. Some days he's on, some days he's off, but there's no real consistency in the bullpen. Starting pitching is a little bit of a concern. The only reason why I'm not as concerned is because those guys have a track record. Darvish is going to give you competitive innings. He had a bad day on Friday, left a lot of things over the heart of the plate, but I'm not worried about you, the way he takes care of his body, the way he goes about his business. He's such a pro. Maybe a little bit worried about Michael King, but not necessarily. He's been pretty good for most of the time. And you start going through like Joe Musgrove. It was encouraging the outing he had against the Yankees. It'd be nice for him to get back into form. I know he's probably still dealing with some stuff. And then, Dylan Cease again, he is like a right-handed Blake Snell, because every once in a while he gives up a bomb because he leaves something over the heart of the plate, but he's got electric stuff. He throws hard. I'm not really worried about him, but an injury here or there in the starting rotation again, and you're in trouble. You're looking for arms at the deadline. But overall, the most concerning thing to me about the Padres for the first third of the season, I agree with your points as well, but I think the bullpen is concerning just because we expected them to be really the biggest asset and the biggest key for this team this year.
I think, and this might be a bold prediction, I think Morejon's going to finish this season much better than how he started.
I agree.
I mean, he's essentially a 2-pitch pitcher now, so they've kind of given up on the whole, hey, you're going to be a 4 or 5 guy for us. He's got his lowest average exit velocity on the season compared to his last 5 seasons where he's been a major league player. Mm-hmm. He's not really walking guys that much compared to him historically. I mean, he was at 11.4% last year. And now he's at
this year,
5.7.
If I didn't say, look, he's only got 1 walk, he wouldn't have walked the guy against the Dodgers.
Right.
He had 1 walk. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago.
Right. I mean, he's
got 5 now.
And like, honestly, his stats are fairly similar to Robert Suarez. I mean, they're similar when it comes to their walk percentage. Suarez, I mean, I think he punches out a few more guys, but I mean, he's freaking Robert Suarez.
Yeah, he's got 28 strikeouts. Morejon does. ERA plus is a 187. League average is 100.
Right.
His fielding independent pitching is 1.24. His whip is 1.062. Hits per 9, 7.5. He's got a lot of good numbers. Strikeout per walks, 5.6.
Right. And I think that they, kind of not saying, hey, we're going to put all this on you to be a 4-pitch pitcher coming out of the bullpen and put you in limbo and make it more simple and easy for the kid. Hey, we're going to go fastball, slider here. These are going to be the situations you're coming in. It's going to help him mentally out there so he's not so much of a circus. And that's something that you're going to build throughout a season, right? It's hard to, tell somebody that March 3rd in spring training when they're trying to just work on everything and when they might be a little bit more of a zoo out there.
The other thing with Morejon too is he's only 25. This is his 6th year in the big leagues. He's only 25.
Yeah.
And I don't even think his service time is like that because he hasn't really qualified for any of these. He only threw 8 innings in 2019 as a 20-year-old. The most innings he ever threw is 2022. He threw 34 innings.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 21 2/3 innings right now in age 25. And obviously he battled some injuries, but not only does he have the second most innings pitched in his entire career this season, he's got the lowest ERA.
Yeah.
2.08. I mean, all his best year was, his best ERA was 3.86 in only 2 starts. He only went 4 2/3, but the year he went through 34 innings, he had a 4.24 ERA.
Right.
28 strikeouts, very similar numbers. The difference was 4 home runs for Morahone in 2022. He's yet to give one up this season. Knock on wood. Hopefully he doesn't get tagged tonight for no reason. But I agree with you. I think he's pitching really well. Now, whether or not they want to stretch him out next year and make him a starter will be another question. But right now, for what you're asking him to do, he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, 90th percentile in exit velocity, 96 in hard hit percentage. He has done very well in his underlying numbers this year. Let's just hope, because he's already at the second most innings and it's May 28th. Hopefully, the wheels should stay on the bus.
I think they will. He's older now. I'm sure he's on some sort of a pitch count. That's why they're keeping him in the bullpen. But I like what I've seen out of Morahone. But then, again, you got guys like Johnny Brito. You got to move him to the rotation, not whatever.
Yeah.
Those are my major concerns. Let's talk about the biggest variable moving forward for this Padres team. Biggest variable going forward. So we talked about the best developments. We've talked about the most concerning development through the first 50-something games. What is the biggest variable for this Padres team to make the playoffs and have a successful second half moving forward, Will?
We gotta go Tatis, right? Like we talked about earlier. I know he's playing solid, but the type of energy and he said it, his swagger, I feel like can be an X factor in a series. Yes, I understand injuries and pitching, that's going to go a long way. But if he's playing well, because I don't know, eventually Manny will figure it out, right? But it looks like he's dealing with that injury. He just doesn't look 100%. He doesn't look like himself. I want to say Tatis. Like, I think at some point, if he could just turn it around in whatever series it may be, and hopefully it's very soon, hopefully as soon as tonight, where he just kind of regains that confidence. And I think his play can get to that next level. To answer your question from earlier, that's why you paid him that statue contract that we heard about a few seasons ago, that $300+ million. And it's not that he's doing anything bad, but, continuing to have stellar defense in right field, command that corner right there and turn it around at the plate. I think that energy is going to feed off on everyone else. And then it just has an effect on the lineup, how Schilt could roll them out, depending also too, if they can hit left-handed pitching, but I would choose him.
This team's ability to slug.
I went through their OPS numbers today on the show. That's which is on base and slug.
Yeah, you didn't find anything.
They're so low. Just all of them are super low. And before I let Matt take this away, I went through it, and it's not good. It's your best OPS guy is Jurickson Profar. And I mentioned this too, like on the show. It's just like Jurickson Profar is having a great year, but Jurickson Profar being a number 3 hitter is not ideal for a Major League Baseball team trying to compete for a World Series. If Jurickson Profar has the year he's having for $1 million and he's batting 7th or 8th because he's on a really good team, this is great. You're getting the best money for your value. But when you're $25 million to $35 million a year guys are competing at a spot that's lower than what you expected Profar to be at, and Profar's the guy carrying the team, you're in trouble. Listen to these. Do you want the slug numbers or the OPS before you go on your thing?
I'm looking at both of them, so you can do whatever you want.
I'm going to just give you from top to bottom the OPS numbers for the Padres this season. 6-7. These are for guys that have enough to qualify for starters. Yep. 670, 806, 581, 692, 621, 899, which is Jurickson Profar. That's the highest. 675, 740, and 650 are your starters' OPS values. As for guys on the bench, I mean, Luis Ariz, 872. He just showed up. Azakar, 588. Kyle Higashioka, 378. Awful. Donovan Solano's been a nice little ad, but again, he's going to be a bench piece. 905. David Peralta, 516. Guys no longer active on the team. They're on the 40-man, though. Eggy Rosario, 836. Eggy pumps. Graham Pauly, 438. Matthew Batten was 1333, but he only had 3 plate appearances. And Brett Sullivan was 0. His OPS plus was negative 100 for his 2 at-bats and 2 punch-outs. But you go through those numbers, not good. Not good for a team that's expected to compete for a World Series, or at least that's what they tell us. So your biggest thing was slug. Those are the numbers for you.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Profar, great. But just, is it going to happen for 162? I probably wouldn't put my money on it.
No, it's not going to happen.
And you look at the guys that are under 400 on their slug. I don't even want to bring up ISO right now, but just their slug. You have all grouped together Luis Campusano, Manny Machado, Ha-Seong Kim, Jackson Merrill, Xander Bogaerts. Them all being in like the 316 to like 377 range. It's not great.
Yeah, they're all under 400.
Yeah. And I mean, you win games in modern baseball by hitting the ball hard and slugging. We just talked about it, looking at Jake Cronenworth's, numbers of how hard he's hitting the baseball and how he's barreling things up compared to Ha-Seong Kim. I mean, it's how you can progress or regress in baseball in 2024. And I know that there was a lot of talk, right? Mostly outside noise about building a team that can win at, quote unquote, win at Petco Park by not hitting the ball out of the ballpark, because it's not historically that much of a home run hitting ballpark. And, guys like Luis Ariz and Jackson Merrill, guys that are contact first guys, they haven't won at home at the rate and put up the offensive metrics that you thought that they were when they made these moves to kind of transition from a power focused team, right?
Well, the thing is, too, it's you can have like 1 or 2 guys like a Jackson Merrill that's high average, low slug that gets on base, but they don't have any high slug guys. They don't have any power hitters.
No,
they don't have any power hitters on this team. And here's the thing. The guys that they spent money on were not power hitters to begin with. Like, Manny's not a power hitter. He's a line drive guy.
Right.
He's always been a line drive guy. And when he hits a home run, it's because he tagged it.
Yeah.
Right. It just, he hit it so hard that it leaves the yard, but he's not a power guy. Same thing with Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts never a power guy. He's a line drive hitter. 100% line drive hitter. You could say what you want about Fernando. I think Fernando can be a power guy in the future, but he's only 25?
Yeah.
24, 25. He's
your best power guy.
And he's not even hitting his man strength yet.
Right.
So you can't even really rely on him. He's a junior power hitter. Jake Cronenworth's not a power hitter. I mean, I know he's been trying to be that guy because he's signed to be a first baseman. He's not a power hitter. Campusano, I guess he's more of a power guy. He's a decent hitting catcher, but you're not sitting there going like, I hope this guy hits 30 home runs. Like, who's on the team's gonna hit 30 home runs? Maybe Machado and Tatis.
Yeah,
that's about it. I mean, they don't have any power bats, and as you mentioned, not a lot of slug, not a lot of OPS. You could, again, if you got a lineup like the Dodgers or the Braves or the Phillies or the Yankees, right? The Yankees got a lot of slug. They got a lot of slug. They got a lot of
shot on Friday night.
Yeah, a lot of high power guys. You can have Kim on your team that just, slap it here and there and get on base. But you, in this day and age of baseball, you can't have a bunch of those guys. You brought it in with Luis Ariz. You got Ha-Seong Kim, slap hitter. Jackson Merrill, slap hitter. Jake Cronenworth, gap to gap guy. I mean, even your power hitters are gap to gap guys. There's not a lot of slug on this team. There's not a lot of OPS. There's not a lot of pop.
So there's one stat you can find, and they actually show it on the sabermetric screen, I guess you can call it, in right field in Petco. Goes up there. It's called ISO. It's basically your isolated power, and it measures how many extra bases you average per at bat. Right. So that's a little bit deeper into the slugging deal. If you look at their team right now, you got nobody above 200. Jake Cronenworth. I mean, nobody that's an everyday player. Jake Cronenworth's the closest at 197. Fernando, we talked about him being a power guy. He's at 167. That is the lowest he's ever been in his career. The highest was 2021 when he hit 42 homers He had an ISO of 328. And just for comparison, Juan Soto this year 262, and he's been a guy that has been basically over 200 his entire career. And I think we would all agree that more extra bases when you come up to bat are a good thing, right? That is very alarming because you can't have 9 guys that are just straight contact guys and singles moving guys over. Like, is it hard to pitch to 9 Tony Gwynns? Absolutely. But do 9 Tony Gwynns score you a lot of runs in modern baseball? Not necessarily.
Not particularly. Here's Fernando Tatis Jr.'s baseball savant page, and it rolls through like his hitting. I mean, most of us are still in the red. I mean, he's barreling up balls, he's hitting them hard, he's got good bat speed. I mean, because I saw a couple people on Instagram saying he's 25 and he's regressing. I mean, you look at these numbers, he's not regressing, but he is getting a little bit more of a slump than we're used to seeing from him in a lot of different spots. But his all of his numbers this year are still relatively high in the great category. For a lot of these percentages, especially with his expected slug and expected batting average, his xWOBA, all pretty good as well as his exit velocity and all that sort of stuff. So that's why, again, I'm not really concerned about the stars per se, but I agree with Will to an extent. I mean, he has to get it going. I mean, it's now time for him to get things going. And I agree with you, Matt. I mean, it's time for the team to start adding some slug. Now, I know some of that comes with the summer. In the summer months, we always hear that from the teams. I find it a little bit of an excuse, but I just don't know. I feel like they have to. I agree. They have to start hitting the ball with some pop, and they got to start driving in some runs and getting some extra slug in there, because as great as it is that Jackson Merrill's hitting, high 280s, they're not getting a lot of guys that hit extra base hits, and they just brought in another guy like Luis Ariz that doesn't have any pop.
Right. I mean, even Luis, though, I mean, his isolated is one of the highest on the team, and it's one of the lowest, but that's exactly kind of like the whole dynamic of the situation. It's like he's not going to get a lot of doubles. He has 1 home run this year, and it was in the Great American Bandbox.
That is a bandbox, let me tell you. I'm responding to some chats on Instagram. It was kind of cool going over to Cincinnati, though. That's a ballpark I've never been to. Obviously, anybody else been there?
Can't say I have.
It's a city I've never been to that
Nope.
It was cool. Like, I would never plan on going there except for the fact that it was like relatively close and stuff and kind of checking the box. It was a pretty cool atmosphere for a baseball game.
You need Skyline Chili?
I didn't have Skyline Chili. I wanted to.
On a trip to
Dude,
Ohio.
I kept talking about it.
Was this your or go ahead.
Yeah, Will's so delayed. Like, I pause, right? And it's like this long pause. So the group I'm with, it's my mom and my dad, my brother, his buddy Jake from Tennessee. He's doing the cross country trip. That's why I was off last week. So Matt graduated from college on 2 Saturdays ago. And congratulations, class 2024, Tennessee Volunteers. And so with kind of the Padres schedule of preempting my show on Monday and Thursday, I took Tuesday, Wednesday off, and I was like, well, let's make a trip out of it, because what he was going to do with Jake's from LA. My brother's got to drive his truck back, and they're like, let's go hit a bunch of ballparks on the way back. And so we did, Monday we did the Bourbon Trail, which was cool, went to Woodford Reserve and Buffalo Trace. And then Tuesday, went to the Louisville Slugger Museum and Bat Factory in Louisville, Kentucky, and then went over to Cincinnati for the ball game. Went to the Reds game Tuesday night, Padres Reds. Will get $3 hot dog night, $3 beers, $2 hot dogs, $1 ice creams. That is a
sounds like the Masters menu.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you could only drink Busch Lights and Bud Lights, but you know what? A $3 beer is a $3 beer. $2 hot dogs.
That is the most Ohio shit I've ever heard. Those were the only options to drink.
The only things you could get for $3. and they're 12-ounce cans. They weren't the tall boys,
okay.
but limit 2 per purchase.
Yeah, $3.
It's $3 though. I mean, when's the last time you had a $3 beer anywhere?
We had a couple $6 ones.
Yeah,
Saturday.
right? Yeah, exactly. Some $6 beers on the discount. But we did. So we went to Cincinnati on Tuesday, and then we went to Wrigley on Wednesday. Chicago, great town. I was only there for less than 24 hours. Want to go back. They have some cool bars down there. They had. I was talking to Perez about it.
Wrigleyville looks so sick.
It's so tight, dude. It's they got they have a couple of bars over there. One of them, the Cubby Bear is pretty cool. It's iconic. They got another bar down the street. It's called Sluggers, and it's like traditional Midwest dive sports bar, right? Like you'd see out of Cheers, even though it's based out of Boston. Where it's like kind of dark, and you got like the wood bar and all that shit. Upstairs, they have a full-on batting cage. It's like $2 to swing the stick. They got bats in the cage and helmets or whatever, and they got 2 cages that pump like 90 if you want to get in a hot cage. They got some slow pitch cages or whatever. But imagine going to a bar and just drinking with your buddies and getting hammered and going up like, I'm gonna take some hacks for $2 in the night.
I mean, imagine you're at Bub's.
I know.
That's the best.
Done with your pitcher, and you're like, all right, look at where's the 75-mile-an-hour machine? Let me get some hacks.
Instead of getting the liquid courage to go talk to the hot girl at the bar, you're gonna be like, I'm taking 90 out right now. I'm gonna
give me a helmet and a bat.
Right. Let me swing the stick a little bit. And this guy's getting hit by balls and stuff. There's just nobody's wearing a helmet. My mom's like, do people like do this and get like when they're drunk? Is this safe? And like my buddy Jason looking at her like, it's Chicago. They don't give a fuck. Yeah. Like it's like they're gonna do whatever they want.
Yes, they do it.
Did you try the 90-mile-per-hour one?
Yeah, we did. I mean, like the first time Bayou, right? And then you like time it up, and we did it. We didn't drink too much before we swung, but me, my brother, and Jake, all baseball players, started to, we timed it and started hacking, and getting some good rips. And then some dudes stumbled in that were drinking, and they thought they could do it. And he says, Bayou, like if his ball hit the mat, guy swung, and it was just like. It's not going to happen. I mean, Matt, we made it a little easier than a lot of people thought. There was a girl that went in there and started tagging the ball at 90, which was cool. But it was pretty fun. It's a nice little place to hang out before the game. And they had other games too. Like they had the beer pong one that you see at Dave and Buster's, and they had some other arcade games and stuff. It was super cheap, but it's a cool place to hang out. I mean, it'd be nice to have some of those bars out there in the gas lamp. But again, that's like on the trip. You don't fully appreciate how great Petco Park is until you go to some of these stadiums and like, your beer selections, Busch Light, Budweiser, Bud Light, like none of their craft beers, like Shock Top, like that's like the craft beer.
Summer Shandy.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Okay.
I had a summer Shandy. I had to have one of those in, exactly. Those were like the craft beers at, Great American Ballpark.
And then it's just the area around the stadium too, right? I mean, it's just
you're not getting any good beer. I mean, so everybody now has kind of got craft beer, so I've tried.
Yeah,
I was sticking to the lagers and stuff, but Cincinnati had a Cincinnati Light, which was pretty good. It was like a flavorful, like light beer, whatever. It was pretty good. I had that when I was in Cincinnati, and then I had one in Chicago too. I had some type of Chicago-based lager that I tried, and it was pretty good. But aside from that, I mean, you're not getting you're blessed with the beer selection you have at Petco. You're blessed with the food selection too. I mean, the food selection, aside from Skyline Chili and Cincinnati, it was just like ballpark food, like the generic ballpark eats.
It's 18 ballpark eats spread out.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's what it is. There's no anything else. But to go back to what I was saying before in this trip, so my brother's continuing on it. They went to St. Louis. They went to Chicago White Sox game on Friday. After I left, and then they went down to St. Louis, and now my parents are back, but Matt and his buddy are in Texas with his buddy's friends. They're at the Rangers game tonight. They're at Texas Live before, so
I miss that place.
That's a great place. We're gonna have to go back. Will's been to Texas Live. I've been to Texas Live with both of you guys separately.
Go Ohio State. I've never seen so many Ohio State fans in a Texas event in my entire life. It was a blast.
It was loaded with Ohio State fans, but Will got the full experience of like actual college football. It was great. You got to make the trip out with us again next year. Get you to go to a Cowboys game, Will. Look good in cowboy blue.
I think I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you
have
see
to.
crazy.
Shit, this sounds like the ultimate travel guide for sporting events. I gotta
That's
go.
right. So anyway, they're at the Rangers game, and then they're going to come. I think they're going to. They were talking about driving to Colorado this week, but it's just so out of the way. It's a 12-hour drive from Dallas to Colorado, and it goes like literally like this, and then straight back down, and then back on their route. It's like kind of a waste. So they might go to Arizona instead, and they're going to end up in LA over the weekend, and then Matt will finally be home and be ready for the golf tournament on Monday. And they're the group in front of us, Will. So we could do some extra heckling. It's gonna be great. Will's fired up.
Yes.
You can start tuning up your driver in the fairway when you see Madden.
I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited for that.
You missed the one where Will was there when we late in the tournament when drinks were flowing. We hammered a drive at Matt in the middle of the fairway, and then Matt turned around and then hit it back at us.
Naturally, I do the same thing. I mean, I don't blame him.
He pulled out his wood and he's like, "Yep, coming back to the tee box." But to go back to what I was saying,
he's got to keep his head on a swivel.
That's right. Back to what I was saying about the Skyline Chili. So like my group didn't know about the Skyline Chili thing. And I was like, this is the place. I was like, you got to try Skyline Chili in Cincinnati. It's like it's a big thing. Like they're all over the place. They're like, it's hot. Why would you have chili? I'm like, it's not the point. It's not the point. It's when in Rome, right?
Yeah.
Like Skyline Chili is their deal. You got to try it. And they're like, why would you get it? Why would you get it? You know, so I ended up not getting it the ball. I'm like, and I didn't want to give it like the ballpark taste. That'd be like going to Petco and just trying Hodad's or Borden Brew for the first time at the park when you know it's like not the same. So I wanted to give them good credits, but they didn't want to go. And then like we're at the Reds game, and it's the end of the game. We're just sitting there waiting for the place to exit out, and these Reds fans in front of us were talking, and you know, my dad's like, oh yeah, we're visiting from San Diego, yada yada yada. You know, we're wearing Padres stuff. They're like, oh, you from San Diego? No, I'm from Sheboygan. I didn't like. Of course, I'm from San Diego. And they're like, oh, you got to get Skyline Chili. They're macking on Skyline Chili conies. And they're like,
dude, I'm from Tallahassee. I just like the Padres.
But they were macking on the cone. My dad's like, oh, it looks really good. What is it? Oh, it's Skyline Chili. You can't come to Cincinnati without having Skyline Chili. And my parents were like, oh, why didn't we go to Skyline Chili? Because I said we got to go. We got to try it. You said it was too hot. But so I missed out. I'm going to have to go back and try it. But Cincinnati was a cool town. Let's get back to what we were originally talking about with everybody got in their variable moving forward. I'm going to go with starting pitching because I think this team goes with starting pitching. I'm curious to see what they do with the Padres at the trade deadline because I think they need what everybody else always needs, an extra starter, another bullpen piece, and a power bat. That seems to be the three biggest holes for the Padres this season, and whether or not they could do it while staying underneath the competitive balance tax will be the biggest question because they've done a good job so far. And like we've given AJ Preller enough a warranted criticism about his lack of ability to build a major league roster. But this year, you got to give him credit acquiring Luis Ariz and Dylan Cease to help the ball club out while staying underneath the competitive balance tax. He has made two really great moves this season. Can he continue that during the trade deadline? And again, the biggest question is, and I'm going to keep quoting the movie Heat. Have you guys seen Heat? It's a great movie.
I don't watch movies, so no.
You're so lame, dude. So lame. Heat is a phenomenal. Did you like The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
The Dark
Great
Knight.
movie.
Like Christopher Nolan made that, right?
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan's big inspiration for The Dark Knight came from Heat and all the scenes in Heat. Heat's
I'll
great.
put it on my
Great
calendar.
flick. Will, I know you're going to hear this in about 5 minutes, but have you seen the movie Heat? Let's wait for the 5 minutes.
Man, watch a movie or something, dude. You can't just not watch movies.
So
You need to watch movies.
It is so delayed.
Oh man, when you get Will some new
Oh
Wi-Fi
my
when he's out here.
God. He's going to react to that and be like, what is going on? He's going to keep sitting here listening to it and listening to it. We have to just pause long enough so he can answer before he hears us again talking and thinks he's getting interrupted.
He might just be fucking with us now. I mean,
I know
he
he could be. He could be. Now he's just frozen. Oh, the fan's moving, so he ain't frozen. The fan is still moving in the top right corner.
We got motion over there in Phoenix.
Oh my God.
All right.
I think I'm going to break this fucking computer. I think I'm going to break it. I think I would go viral. I think that me fucking breaking this motherfucking computer would be viral. It'd be awesome.
No.
It's a Frank the Tank moment out of Will.
Office Space style. Just taking out bag and beating it with bats. All right. I think Will needs to like reset and rejoin. So we're gonna let him do that real quick. So the movie The Heat is the phenomenal movie. It's got an all-star cast in it. In reality, it's got Al Pacino's in it and Robert De Niro. They're the two guys going against each other. Val Kilmer's in it as well. Danny Trejo's in it as a side role. John Voight's in the movie. It's a really good heist movie, but there's a scene. I think it's one of the best scenes in all of movies. But so Al Pacino he's the cop that is hunting down Robert De Niro for these heists, and there's like another big one being planned, and they have dinner together at a diner the night before or 2 nights before De Niro is going to rob the bank. And they have this full on conversation. And it's the first time that you see like a protagonist and antagonist just having like a normal human interaction, one-on-one, talking about life, talking about, their family life, all this other stuff, what it's like, why do you do it kind of deal. And, part of the scene that I'm getting to like the point here with the Padres is like, it's when you feel that heat coming around the corner, what are you going to do? Right. And the question is, it's like, if you're in my way and that heat's coming around the corner, even though we have had this conversation, I won't think twice kind of attitude. Right. Like, even though you humanized it, whatever. So my thing is with AJ Preller, it's around the trade deadline and you're in competition, but you're struggling, right? You're a couple of games above 500. You can really make a roll out of it. If he feels that heat coming around the corner, is he going to blow everything up to try to save his ass? And I think he will be allowed to make any move that he wants to make as long as he does not go over the luxury tax or the competitive balance tax. So my question is, can he acquire these pieces in order but being competitive, but also staying underneath the competitive balance tax? To me, I think he could get a bullpen piece by doing that. I think he could get a power bat by doing that. I'm not necessarily sure he can get a starting pitcher and stay underneath the competitive balance tax. So therefore, for me, the biggest variable moving forward of if they can make the playoffs or if they can make a run in the playoffs would be the starting pitching. Because again, one injury, and we've already seen a couple right now with you at the beginning of the season and now Joe, and both of them are back. But any type of significant injury, that rotation is in some serious crap, because as much as, Matt Waldron, I think, has done a good enough job for them, he is still statistically one of the worst fifth starters in Major League Baseball. He is still one of the worst fifth starters in Major League Baseball. And to me, I think that they need to be able to have guys like, they got to get Randy Vasquez into that rotation. I mean, they just don't have the depth. So if they're unable to address the starting pitching or add another arm, to me, that's going to be the biggest variable moving forward about how much success they will have.
What they need is, and this is going to be a perfect segue into, they need to get Joe Musgrove going.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is night and day compared to what he was his first 3 years here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what the hell happened. I would say, and I mean, I'm going to pose this as a question. His best pitch is what historically?
Slider.
What do you think his worst pitch is this year? Or what pitch has the biggest movement, the biggest separation of movement from last year and this year?
It's probably a slider.
Yeah. Does not move the same as it has historically.
Well, here's
the
thing with Joe and the slider too, which I think is interesting. We talked about this before, but when he was in Pittsburgh, he didn't throw a lot of sliders.
Mm-hmm.
He threw his fastball, and he threw a change, and he threw some other pitches. What do we know, Matt, about the slider and what it does to your arm?
It's a good way to
way
to ruin it.
But you only have so many bullets with sliders, correct?
Yeah.
There's only so many bullets you could throw. So when he was with Pittsburgh, go to his Baseball Savant page.
I'm looking right at
when he was, and look at pitch usage. When he was in Pittsburgh, he threw the fastball a ton.
He was like 40, 35, 32%.
Right. It was his number one pitch.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he got to San Diego, what was his number one pitch?
Slider.
Immediately shot up.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately shot up. And he had that for those 2 years, right? Where he was a stud. Slider. We see him all the time throwing the slider.
Yeah.
I remember on the show, Coach was like, he's got it. He told me off. He's like, you better watch out the sliders, man. You only got so many bullets in your arm throwing a slider.
I mean, it would be a 3-1 count. It's a slider.
Bang, slide
Boom,
piece.
strike two. It's like, okay.
Right. I mean, but it's hard when you're out there dealing, you're throwing no hitters. You're going about, you're having great years. You're getting, you're in contract years trying to get that big money. Slider. Go-to pitch, slider. And what has he done the last couple of years of the slider? It's gone down.
Yep.
And he's gotten hurt. And he's had the shoulder, right? He has gotten a shoulder injury. And they didn't specify of it, but based on people I've talked to with the shoulder injury, the one that he has is one that you can't there's no surgery for it. You can't fix it. He's going to have to deal with some pain. He's going to have to deal with, and to me, I really think, and I don't know for sure. I mean, he says he's fine, right? And, I'm just kind of guessing. So, and I'm not a medical expert, but it looks like it's painful for him to throw that pitch.
Yes. I
mean, that's what it looks like. That slider is just, it's not the same. It's coming out different. He's not feeling the same. So he's gone away from it a little bit. But I don't think he trusts his fastball anymore near the plate. It doesn't have that velo anymore. I mean, it's down. And the Padres said, oh, no, it's not down. It's not down. It's down. I mean, they laughed at the significance of how down it is. And like, well, in the summer months, it will get higher. I mean, say what you want. And the Padres have said all of that. But the slider usage was through the roof for Joe. And now he's a fastball. He just doesn't have the same pit. Now he's trying to find different ways to get guys out. I thought his last start was encouraging, but it's been tough to watch with his pitches. And then I think a lot of it has to do with his slider usage. And we've seen pitchers in the Padres organization that have been told to throw certain pitches and found their way on an injured list for a long period of time, or Tommy John surgery. So I think maybe the slider usage has caught up to Joe a little bit.
It's slider usage and slider shape. His first 2 years had very little vertical movement, which is what you want in a slider.
Yeah.
Baseball's Vaughn's telling me 3.1 is first year when he threw the no-hitter, and 2.6 2022 when he was an all-star. Last year, 5.7, and this year, 6.1. Essentially, it's moving more like a curveball.
Right.
And it's the same velocity as a curveball, and it's similar spin to a curveball. And it's essentially losing its shape. And these big league hitters are so good, they're able to pick up the spin on the slider a lot easier than spin on a curveball, because ideally your spin on a four-seam fastball and a curveball will mimic each other, more or less, right? And then your slider is a little bit different. It depends on what you throw. But typically, instead of spinning like this on a fastball, your slider is going to rotate and spin like that, kind of like a washing machine,
right?
Essentially. And when you look at how hitters are doing against them, they're pulling the ball 45% at the time, which is the highest that it's been. And last year it was 43. Before that, the highest was 40.3. So that's telling me that the hitters are picking up on something that he's doing. I'm not necessarily sure if it's something he's doing pre-pitch or where his glove is or whatever. It just seems like out of the hand that the hitters are seeing it more, and they're barreling up 11.5% of the balls that he's throwing, which is higher than it's ever been.
Well, and the other thing too is, as you mentioned before, like his slider looking more like a curveball, his curveball usage is through the roof. And a lot of these that get identified by, pitch tracks and TrackMan and all of those things. They can mistake it for a curveball. They're probably mistaking it for a curveball. So it is probably his slider still, but it's getting tagged as a curveball because of the way that it's being thrown, and it's a lot different. So it's tough. I mean, to see guy, and it's funny is like we were warned about it before. You only got so many sliders in your arm, and you got to find different ways to get guys out with different pitches. And I mean, he could be a successful pitcher with a curveball, but he's just got to be able to use it more. I mean, maybe you mix in the cutter a little bit more, get some, pitch some of those fastballs like a sinker or some of the ones that Darvish throws that has more cut and movement on it, where you're throwing it like a fastball, but it moves like a slider and it puts less pressure on your arm. I mean, these might be some of the adjustments that he'll have to make.
Yeah. And he does have a cutter, and he's thrown it more this year than he has every other year. He's not, or I'm sorry, it has more movement. All of his pitches seem to have more movement, for better or for worse, but that's not necessarily the best thing when you look at a pitch like a slider. So I'm interested to see how he does the rest of the year, because this is also the first time that Baseball Savant has logged as a sweeper for him.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that's at 17 inches of horizontal movement, which is pretty disgusting. But it's, once again, it's right up there with the slider when it comes to the horizontal movement. But I mean, that's what a slider does, right? It goes side to side and not necessarily up and down.
Houston and Pittsburgh, fastball through the roof. As soon as he gets to San Diego, its slider just jumps.
Yeah.
Which I find very interesting. Do you think that's a organizational philosophy? Do you think they made him throw it more, or do you think he was having success so he threw it a lot more?
I think that the Padres identified, hey,
slide piece.
Yeah,
maybe.
Your slider is pretty good. Your curveball's pretty good. You should be a off-speed first starter, and use your fastball as a to kind of supplement your array of sliders, sweepers, and curves. He did have a different pitching coach back then, so I mean that's entirely possible. Where
Larry Rothschild.
It was a Larry Rothschild call of, hey, this is
Hasn't
what
he burned out
do.
a lot of guys' arms before?
Yeah, I think Yankee fans would tell you. That's where he was, right? He was in New York.
He was in New York.
Yeah, I think Yankee fans would tell you that.
If you look at his slider still this year, he's thrown it 105 times, and opponents are hitting 211 against it with an expected batting average of 186, expected slug 439 with a 366 WOBA, which is still the best of all the pitches in his arsenal aside from that sweeper, but he hasn't really thrown that a lot.
Right.
And his sweeper could be identified as a couple other things.
Right. And the fastball's the highest.
Yeah, they're tagging that.
Almost. Oh, sorry. Cutter.
Yeah, at 405.
Right. So, I mean, his stuff that is quote unquote hard. Right.
Yeah, they're tagging it. And it's coming in less than he usually throws it. 92.4 miles an hour is down from 93.1 in 2023, but I think he was topping off at 94, if I'm not mistaken, in his career, but it continues to go down. And that's where it's like a little concerning. But, the Padres said they weren't concerned with it when Annie went down there and talked to him. So take that for what it's worth. But to me, it's the starting pitching that I think would be the biggest thing moving forward for this Padres team. That needs to, because that's been a very inconsistent group.
Yeah.
Up and down.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're going to get bad outings. I mean, Darvish had a very uncharacteristic outing on Friday where he left everything over the heart of the plate. And, Dylan Cease made a bad. See, like, I don't understand, like, when Dylan Cease had Aaron Judge 0-2 and he flipped his curveball right over the middle of the plate. It's like, you got him with all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And I understand, like, we've heard Joe talk, right? Because Joe says, in his kind of delivery, he's like, I got to throw stuff that I know that they can hit just so they see it, right? So they see it. He's like, I could throw my stuff that they can't hit all the time, but then they're just not going to swing at it.
Right.
I got to throw them something tempting every once in a while. So I understand that part, but, there's a lot of balls leaked over the middle of that plate that the New York Yankees tagged this weekend.
I mean, that's the last team you want to do that against. I mean, those guys are giants out there. I mean, Stan and Judge, Juan, those are big boys who play big boy baseball.
As long as they stay healthy, which has been a big problem for them in the past. But so far they are healthy. I mean, they're not like the Braves that are getting guys dropping like flies, or the Dodgers, or the Diamondbacks that have hurt that spot. Here's the last question I have for you, and it kind of came along with what Dennis Lynn had today about teams that at this point in time of the season that you see in terms of a playoff race. So pull up the standings. At this point in the season, there are always two teams that are in the postseason right now that don't make it at the end of the year, and there's always 2 teams that are not in the postseason that do make it at this point in time. That could be division winners, wild cards, what have you. So for me, pull up the National League wild card standings. Give me 2 teams that won't make the playoffs
that are in.
And give me 2 teams that are out of the playoffs that you think could make the playoffs.
I'll take the Giants as out.
I know they just snuck in there. They're 8-2 in their last 10.
Right, and their run differentials -15.
Yeah, and they're 1 game above 500.
I mean that's hard. The National League is not. It's not good.
It's not good.
You
can pick one is fine.
I'll take St. Louis.
You think St. Louis will sneak in?
They might.
Chicago's
their run
not there.
differential's 43, but Goldschmidt has kind of turned it around recently, and they're 7-3 in their last 10.
If I had to pick 2 teams currently not in the postseason to make the postseason, I would go as the Chicago Cubs, and I'd go the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I saw the Rattlebacks. I was like, it's not a bad one.
Rattlebacks are 3 games under 500, starting to play a little bit better ball, 5-5 in their last 10, but they're getting a lot of players back from injury this year. They got a lot of guys in that rotation and bullpen, and they got pitchers. They got arms that are hurt that are coming back that are going to be almost like trade deadline pickup.
Right.
Where, I really don't. I picked St. Louis to win that division because I just thought Cardinals never have 2 bad years in a row. Cardinals always figure it out. Cardinals are a traditional team. They made a lot of moves during the offseason to kind of regroup and go after it, and they haven't been very good. Their young guys aren't very good. There's talk about 2 stars that aren't playing that well either. Arenado and Goldschmidt off to rather poor starts. But to me, they're hanging around. I think the Cubs are going to be a playoff team. But right now they're in a downturn. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 5 in a row. I watched them play Atlanta on Wednesday. They got their ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're getting perfect game through 5 innings. Max Fried was shoving it up their ass like the whole time. And it was to the point. It's funny, like when you go to games live and one of the teams is not one of your teams, and you just like kind of watch the game with no emotional ties. I mean, I was watching the Cubs going, how does this team score? Seriously. I was like, you go through the lineup and you're like seeing what they hit, and you're seeing their averages and guys in their lineup, and you're like, how does this team score any runs? I mean, Suzuki looked bad. Christopher Morel, if I'm not mistaken, is not doing very well right now. I think he's
hidden below the Mendoza.
He's under the Mendoza line right now. He's supposed to be one of the guys that contributes. I mean, Bellinger's been okay. He's been battling injuries, but I looked at the team like, how do they score?
Nobody's got an OPS over 775.
I believe it.
That plays every day.
Their rotation's good though, so like that keeps them in the mix.
Right. It's almost like the inverse of like I think it'd be like if the Nationals kind of snuck up and grabbed the last wild card spot, but I
think they're out.
Yeah, I think they're out, but it's like, hey, like that would be I think that would be fun to see that, but that's not my.
The other thing that's like statistically is this is the time of the year where like what teams are. If 2 teams flip.
Right.
So this is most likely what you're going to see the entire year. I mean, if you look at the standings, and this is why I said on my own show on Sundays about the Padres, I mean, even though they're like a mediocre team around 500, we mentioned how bad the National League is, or at least that they're playing record-wise. Who are they competing with for a playoff spot? Like, to me, Philly, LA, and Milwaukee are all in. I think they're in. And if it's not Milwaukee, then it's one team from the Central, obviously. But Philly, LA, Milwaukee's in, and I think Atlanta's in, despite their injuries.
Yeah.
That's 4 of the playoff spots gone. You have 2 spots left. Let's go from the bottom up. Miami's out.
Nope.
Colorado's out.
Nope.
New York Mets are out.
Unfortunately.
They're out. I thought Cincinnati 2 weeks ago was probably still around. They're out.
Yeah.
They're done. I mean, they played like shit the last 3 weeks, and they don't have, I know they got injuries too, but their rotation's not great. I know they swept the Dodgers this weekend, but they have not played really good baseball. I think it's going to be a lot for them to come back. And I think the Nationals are also out. They're right there 4 games under 500, but I think they're done. And I know the Pirates got Paul Skeens. I think they're out too. I don't see. They got some good starting pitching, but they don't have a team that I think can make it through the season. Pirates and Nationals are two teams that are hanging around right now, but they have teams that I don't think they can make it through the season. That leaves you with the Giants, the Padres, the Cubs, the Cardinals, and the Diamondbacks. You got 5 teams battling for 2 spots.
Yeah.
Out of those 5 teams, or should I say 4 others, because, we're talking from a Padres perspective, what teams are you afraid of?
Probably St. Louis.
Maybe St. Louis.
I mean,
I'm not really afraid of any of those teams. I mean, if I got to play one of those
I'm not either, but I mean, if I had to pick one, it would be St. Louis, just because they got guys in the middle of that order that have a track record of being great players.
I'm not afraid of Arizona. You already won 4 out of 6 against Chicago.
Right.
You've already proven you're better than them, and I know it's beginning and whatever. I'm not afraid of them. The Diamondbacks, I'm a little concerned just to see what they look like at the end of the season with some of their players, but we've seen the Rattlebacks. I mean, they're not anything special. And the Giants, I mean, they got the better of the Padres this first 2 series. You're not seeing them until September, and their starting rotation's taking a major hit with injuries, and Blake Snell's awful. And their run differential's -15. I mean, it's not like you're battling it out with the Phillies team that just killed you a couple of weekends ago for the final playoff spot. You're competing with the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants for 2 wild card spots.
Yeah.
You just got to be better than 3 of those teams.
Yeah. You got to
you're in the playoffs. Yeah. So despite some of the holes the Padres might have, starting pitching, being a little bit of concern, lack of a power bat, bullpen kind of being a circus at times. If you're the Padres, I mean, you just got to cruise through that first part of this year. And that's exactly what they did. I mentioned earlier in the show, I want to get into this. Padres played a very difficult schedule to start the year. How difficult? They have played 34 games against teams above 500 out of their 50, whatever it is, 57. Right? 57? Padres have played 57 games, 34 of them against teams above 500. There's only one team that's close in the National League when it comes to games against teams above 500. That is the Pirates. They've played 33. The Pirates are 4 games under 500. The other team that was close are the New York Mets. The New York Mets have now played 33 games against teams above 500 because they played the Dodgers earlier today in a doubleheader. They're 22-31. I mean, the Padres have played a schedule where they could be 5 or 6 games below 500 right now, really behind the 8 ball trying to compete. Right? They're 1 game above 500. They're 18-16 against teams above 500, but they're also 1 game above 500 in the regular year. In perspective, in terms of schedules, and I'm not saying the Padres would have the same record as this team, but the Philadelphia Phillies have played 11 games against teams above 500. They're 8-3. 3 of those wins, by the way,
the toughest part of their schedule yet.
3 of those wins, by the way, are against the Padres.
Against the Padres, yeah.
Right. So it's not like they've played the Dodgers or the Yankees or some of the best teams in Major League Baseball. Yeah, they played the Braves first weekend of the year. What did they do? They went 1-2.
Yeah.
They went 1-2 against the Reds. I mean, at the time, they were a decent team. And I think the Phillies are really good. I mean, I think right now they're the best team in the National League with the injuries that the Braves have suffered and the way the Dodgers are playing. But they've only played 11 games. It's not who you play, it's when you play them, especially in baseball when you play the entire league nowadays.
Right. The Reds are right there too on that 12-20. They just missed a cut.
They played 32 games.
Yeah.
And they're 6 games under 500.
I mean, the Padres have played the most and they have a winning record. The other teams with a winning record, Dodgers, obviously, Phillies, as you mentioned. Let's see here, Baltimore, that's to be expected. 17-6 against teams over 500.
But again, that's only
they would be in first.
That's only 23 games.
Right. It's an impressive winning percentage though.
Yeah. But still, I mean, they've played 10 games less than the Padres against teams above 500. So it's a tough schedule. And that's why when you went through the schedule at the beginning of the year, if they could finish 500 on Memorial Day, they're going to be at a good spot. I mean, the upcoming schedule gets a lot easier for them. And now the biggest question is obviously for the Padres, because here's the caveat though. They don't do well against teams below 500. So the schedule gets better, but is that necessarily better for the Padres?
Right.
They can't beat anybody that's lousy. I mean, you're getting swept by the Rockies and stuff. But if you look at their schedule, I mean, it gets significantly easier. It gets a little bit easier in June, but you really don't get the luxury of the schedule until July and August. And by the time we get to August, we don't know what the Padres team is going to look like due to the trade deadline. I mean, they could be a lot better after the trade deadline. But let's talk about the rest of June, right? You got the Royals for 3. Royals have had a good year, but I'm not really afraid of the Royals. That's a little bit of an easier deal, but that's going to be 3 more games against teams above 500. Then you got the Halos, awful. You got the Diamondbacks at home. It's all right. Athletics, I know they're playing better baseball, but they quit before the season even started. Their front office did. They didn't want to win. The Mets have been a disaster. And then you got the Phillies are tough. Brewers
That's
are
gonna be
tough.
a tough week when you got
The Phillies and the Brewers.
Yeah.
And then it's the Nationals, Red Sox, Then you get to July, and after you play the Rangers the first week, back to the Diamondbacks, Mariners, Braves. That's tough for the All-Star break, but then you got, Guardians, Nationals.
Guardians are good.
You get to August, and you're going to you get the Rockies, the Pirates, the Marlins, the Pirates, the Rockies.
Minnesota, New York.
New York Mets. Yep. And then you don't know where the Cardinals are going to be at that point in the year. They could be out of it. And then you got the Rays, and then you get a little bit of a Tigers first week of September. Giant. You're going to be competing with the Giants for a playoff spot. Mariners again. The American League West is not good. I mean, their best team is Seattle, and they're like 2 games above 500. Giants again. Astros. Astros could have quit by that point. I think they might be able to turn it around, but they've been hurt. White Sox. Get the White Sox. You get the quitting White Sox after the trade deadline. I mean,
Tommy Pham's going to be in different pinstripes.
The second to last week of the year, you get to play the White Sox. Thank you for 3 wins at home. Again, you don't really play well against teams above 500. Then you got the Dodgers and Diamondbacks to finish the year. I mean, it's going to get better for them.
Yeah, I like August out of all the months that we just rattled off.
July gets
August
tough.
Is probably their best shot.
That's their best shot to rack up some wins.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, in terms of like getting some sweeps and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because they should be able to handle the Angels up north. I mean, the Royals are they're better, but they could take 2 out of 3 from them. You never know with division games, but the Padres have done better than the Diamondbacks this year. A's are bad, Mets are bad. I don't think they win a single game in Philadelphia. They win 1 game in Philly, I'd be pleased. The Brewers at home, I could see that being a split. Nationals, as long as Mackenzie Gore doesn't pitch, they'll probably be okay. And then, they always struggle with the American League teams, but
unless it's the AL West.
Yeah, they own the AL West, dude. Hang the banner. AL West champs every year for the last 3 years.
Swept the World Series champs last year.
That's true. They did do that. They do that every year.
Yeah.
You want to know who's going to win the World Series? Somebody the Padres swept. Yeah, exactly.
That season.
They're winning the World Series. But, I mean, you still get to play everybody in the AL West. And the best team in the AL West right now is 3 games above 500. I mean, the Rangers are 4 games division. Under. Astros are 6. I mean, the Astros have been terrible. They've been terrible. They're in 3rd place. They're still competing. A's 10 games under, and the Angels are 13 games under 500.
Hang with them up in Anaheim.
That's 15 games the Padres still get to play.
Yeah.
Twins. I think the Central's a lot better to start the year, but I think they're going to fall apart. You still got 3 games against the White Sox, 3 against the Tigers, 3 against the Twins, 3 against the Royals, 3 against the Guardians.
Yeah. I like the Guardians this year. They
solid.
Are the second best team in the AL.
They are solid.
Probably the third or 4th best team now. In
the past, I had a thing with Coach that he was sucking off the Guardians too much, and they were a mediocre team. But this year, they're actually really good. So, a different opinion on that this time. You still got to play the Nationals, 5 games under. Mets. I mean, you get to play the Marlins 3 more times. I mean, I think it's going to work out for the Padres.
Sets up well for him, but I think the last couple of years have shown. I believe it you can't believe it till you see it.
Yep.
They have shown promise before, and things have looked great until they haven't, and dropping games and series to ball clubs that they have no excuse doing so.
Anything else for us today? Besides Will needing a new laptop.
Maybe we can get a laptop hole at Medeiros next Monday and get closest to the pin. You get a laptop or something. You put it within 3 feet. You get a
Guy's gonna win.
$200 discount.
Guy's
at the
gonna
Apple
win
Store or
the
something.
hole in one hole and win a car and see if he can exchange it for an Apple Mac laptop.
I'm looking forward to Monday. That's it.
I'm looking forward to Monday too. I'll be up in Santa Barbara this weekend.
It is regardless of how I play or how we play, it's one of the best days that I look forward to every year. The Cathedral Golf Tournament at Madeiras for a couple $100 and a hell of a time.
And a one stick.
That's true. Apparently, there's a lot of other Padre.
We got some
memorabilia.
miscellaneous Padre shit.
It's a hodgepodge.
Yeah, honorary Don Matt Perez, as well as Will Galvez and Ron Davis
And Kyle.
and Kyle this year.
Kyle, who's gonna be our ringer.
And then, but we added more Dons though. Nick Filio's been added.
Okay, there you go.
We got another Don. We got 3 Dons out of the 8.
Okay,
I think that's fair enough. And we have at least one per group.
yeah, you got them. Well, yeah, you got one per
Just
group
Nick's
and not
in the
one
other
per
one.
parent. So,
but it's gonna be Mike and I, you and Kyle, and then next group Will and Ron and Nick and his buddy.
I'm fired up to see Ron. I see Ron once a year at this tournament.
What's up, dudes? Ron's gonna be bitching about the Dodgers. Man, Dodgers gonna blow it in the playoffs. Dude, we got to get Ron on the show. He used to do a podcast on StreamYard like this called the Corona Kings during COVID, dude. Him and his buddy Tyler.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of his account, Tyler and Ronnie.
Yeah.
Your favorite podcast. It was great stuff, dude. I was on it a couple of times. We got to return the favor and get Ron on the show.
There's never a bad time hanging out with Ron.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing, how your day's going, like what's going on. Like you always have a smile on your face when you're dealing with him.
Well, the first time that you and Mike met Ron was when you guys came over for that Padre Dodger game. And I said, I got a buddy who's coming. He's a Dodger fan. Like, oh, here we go. And then I was like, nah, he's a miserable Dodger fan. And you're like, oh, okay.
He showed up looking like Canelo and Dodger slides. And
that's right. The Dodger slides.
Like a red bucket hat. I'm like, all right.
Ron said, remember we went to that soccer game? He said all the guys were calling him Canelo when he walked in. Hey, what's up, Canelo?
He gets out of Dodger Stadium too. I mean,
oh yeah, facts, dude. Oh, he went with us that one time, right to the playoff game.
Yeah, he was there for the playoff game.
It's good stuff. He's Matt Perez. I'm Braden Soprennett. Matt now 2-10, by the way. Got another dub.
Hey,
got another dub.
What have you done for me lately?
They would have been hosed tonight if you went to the game.
Yeah,
lefty night game at home. Matt Perez in attendance.
Yeah, it's just all it's a perfect recipe for a losing effort. I got a text yesterday from Dave. Shout out Dave for the social sparklers on Saturday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Setting records at the Padres happy hour.
He always gives me a hard time for going and losing, and immediately it wasn't like a hey, good job. It was a hey, are you going tomorrow? No, don't worry, they got to do it without me tomorrow.
Oh, you know what? Hopefully they find a way to win. I mean, if you're looking at betting odds and you're looking at trends, you bet your house on the Marlins tonight become Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. It's not too late to go to TJ.
That's right.
Go to Caliente and throw some coin down.
That's it for us on the podcast. Why Start a Podcast. We'll be back at it next week. We'll have Will Galvez in studio with us.
He still needs a new laptop unless we want to go side by side.
You know what? You might have to do it side by side. We have to make it happen, so it will be a fun time next week. For Matt Perez, I'm Braden Soprennett. We'll see you guys next week.